Now to paint the fire on top of this kind of texture that we've got here, first we need to paint it white. The reason we need to paint it white is that we want to blend yellow and reds and blacks on top of this. But the colors won't blend if we paint it directly on regular plaster, because plaster is going to make that paint soak right into it. So to make this kind of waterproof so that we can do a blend, we're going to have to put white paint on it. So I know it seems kind of silly to paint white plaster white, but the reason we'll do that is just to waterproof it, and that way we can get our blend to happen. So just get some white paint, jam it into the cracks really well, and put a good coating of white paint on the surface. Okay, it's time to paint the color on our bed of coals here. And what you're going to need is, I've got some bright yellow paint, some bright red paint, and some black paint. And I've also got a cup of water and a paper towel here so that I can clean the brush out between the different colors and when I'm going to blend it. Put yellow all the way down the middle here. Let's get a little more yellow on there. And what happens is, as you're working with this, the yellow will tend to dry in the middle. By the time you get the yellow painted and it's starting to blend the red, the yellow kind of dries in the middle so that you can pull the red off of the yellow, because the yellow's dry and the red's not. So let's see, I'm going to overpaint this yellow a bit, because if I go too far with the yellow, it's not going to matter. Yellow is a very transparent color, and any other colors I use are just going to dominate this yellow, and you'll never see the yellow at all. Okay, that's going to work out pretty good. Right there, like that. Okay, got the yellow, so I'm going to rinse that brush out, and I'm going to dip it in the red, and let's get that ring of red going. Wow, I really dipped that brush down in there, didn't I? Okay, we're going to go red around the outside of this thing. Red around the outside. Keep it way around the outside. Okay? Way around the outside. Alrighty. There's my red, and I can overpaint this red onto the sides. In fact, you probably want to paint the red all the way out to the very outside edges here, because black can always cover the red really easily without a problem. So you can't really overpaint the red too far to the edge. Okay, there we go, I got the red. Let's rinse this brush out, rinse it out, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that brush wet, and I am going to go into the yellow and try to pull some of that yellow out into the red. Okay, I did a few brush strokes, and it looks like my brush is now loaded up with red. So I'm going to rinse that brush out again. I'm going to dab it off on the paper towel. I don't want too much water here. And then I'm going to work around the outside edge. I'm going to try to dissolve that line up between the yellow and the red. Okay, there we go. Work around it a bit more. Let's rinse that brush out. Dry it off just a touch, and now I'm going to work this little orangey color in between into the yellow here. Okay, a little more towards the center. Okay, and like so. That looks pretty good. Now if I got a little bit too much red in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse off the brush, dry it off, and try to pull some of that red back out of there with the dry brush. Okay, so it looks like I've pretty much got just about what I want. Okay, I concentrate on this and I don't concentrate where this is in front of the camera here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I've got it kind of blended from yellow to red. Let's go ahead, I'm going to rinse the brush out, I'm going to dry it off just a touch, and let's go ahead and put the black around the outside. So let's dip this brush in the black, and I'm just going to go to the very, very outside edges, way around, because black is going to want to take over everything else. So let's go all the way around the outside with the black. All the way around the outside with the black. And these two little holes that we got right here, it's probably better to go ahead and be sure that you get a little bit of black down in the hole there. You don't want any white showing later on around the forge. So we'll go around the outside of the hole there. And we'll go around the outside here. And we'll go around the outside here. Okay. There we go. Okay. And once again, what we want to do is blend the red into the black. So I'm going to rinse that brush out. Let's get all that black out of the brush. And I'm going to leave the brush a little bit wet. If you got too much water and you put it on here in a big drop, you know, water goes everywhere. Just touch it against a paper towel, pull a little bit of that water out, and let's kind of work this edge between the black and the red. Okay? Let's work this edge between the black and the red. Now it looks like my black paint was drying just a little bit, so if your paint starts to dry a bit on you, you can always put a little more water on it. Here we go. Now I'm just kind of dissolving and breaking up. Okay, my brush right now looks like it's kind of loaded up with black a little bit. So I'm going to wash that brush out again. Dry it just a hair on the paper towel so it's still got a little bit of dampness to it. Okay, let's work this together here around the outside edge. Okay, there we go. Now let's go. Don't want to go too far. I went a little bit too far in here, right? So what you do is you rinse that brush out, you dry the brush off, and you suck that black right out. Because what's happening is the red is dry and the black isn't. So we can, you know, pull that black out of the red a little bit because the black is, okay, now it's all kind of starting to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my brush down a little bit. And let's see if I can dissolve that paint a little bit in there and get it to blend a little bit. There we go. Okay. And it doesn't have to be an absolute perfect job. The dry brush that we do over top of it is going to make quite a bit difference here. Okay, now we're going to dry brush the gray on top of the coals. And I'm using the lightest gray from the Castle Gray colors for your final highlights on your Castle colors. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this test piece and we're going to dry brush on it. So what we want to do is very, very light dry brush of gray. So you're really going to have to get the paint out of it. Get a wide, soft brush. This is probably about, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch wide. Wide brush works better for larger areas. And we're going to get paint on this brush, and we are going to wipe all of this paint out of the brush. We are going to get as much of it out as we possibly can. And I didn't put a lot of paint in this brush to begin with. So let's get rid of that paint, get rid of that paint, get rid of that paint, get rid of that paint. And if you get this to where it's just right on your test piece, immediately go to your good piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on here. Let's see if I can get this here in the camera. And I'm going to dry brush. If I dry brush it on my hand, do I see any? I don't really see much there. So I'm going to go really lightly with it, over top of it. Okay. I'm just going to go really lightly, really lightly. Okay, yeah, that's just about right, I think. Okay, we're going to go lightly over the whole thing. We're going to go over the red, we're going to go over the black, we're going to go over the yellow. And you just take your time, lots and lots and lots of brush strokes. Let's go on to my piece. My brush is perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and forth over it. And we are going to dry brush this one the same way. We're going to go over the whole surface here. And if we need to pick up a little more gray, pick it up off the paper towel. And then go back over it. And if it doesn't feel like it's getting quite around the cracks in the black, you can shove a little bit harder with the brush. I'm kind of half jamming the brush down and half dragging it across. So it looks like it's doing pretty good. I think I just need more gray on this. Okay. So here's what we've got, kind of a close-up of it. This is what it looks like here. I think it does a pretty good job for just to show there's a little bit of fire in the forge there. Here's the finished forge with the fire put inside of it. The construction plans to this forge are on the website. The paint job for this stone is to spray paint it flat black, give it a medium dry brush of the medium earth tone color, and then final highlight dry brush of light gray of the Castle Gray colors.